For those of you who just came in, hello, hello. We got a couple more minutes, so I'll probably stall for at least 3 or 4 more minutes to give people some more time to join us. But thank you for being here. We're so excited. Lindsay and I, we have these conversations quite frequently of how lucky we are to get to do what we do, to get to work with you guys, to meet so many amazing people. And that's one thing that we've really taken away, is that the quality of our lives really is based on the quality of the relationships that we have. And so getting to build these relationships with you guys, some of you, we've already started to build those relationships, and some of those we may build in the future. We are so excited. Hi, Susie. Nice to have you here. I love the chat. You can throw any questions you have there, or any thoughts or anything you want to share at any time. And Lindsay's going to help monitor that with me as we're doing a little lesson from Dr. E. We're so excited to have her join us here. And we'll give the other people a few more minutes to get in here.
Hold on. How do you say Toya? Is that right?
How do you say what?
How do you say her name? Tawya. Toya?
Toya.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hand is up. I'm going to let you talk because your hand is up.
No, well, let's save that. We'll do that. We'll do that at the
There's a
end.
question. Maybe
Yeah, they're just trying to say hi, I think. Yeah, but now.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Yes. No, that's awesome. I want to tell them real quickly our origin story of how this came to be here. So welcome everyone. We're at 5. We like to be right on time and want to keep this under an hour, but we'll stay here as long as people have questions. Of course, that's what this is all about. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jesse LeBeau. My background, I grew up in Alaska, a little island, was into basketball, and I identified my whole life as being an underdog. And I fell into this weird kind of world that I didn't plan on getting involved in entertainment. And that led me to travel all over the world and play basketball and start getting to speak in front of teenagers in middle schools and high schools. And through all that, it led me to write a book and start working with tons of kids. And it's just been an amazing experience. And about, I guess it was 2 years ago, it was right before the pandemic started, Lindsay, when I came up to Portland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, it was, like a year before.
About 2.5 years. I was up in Portland, and we were doing a tour, going to a bunch of the schools out there and shooting some different TV shows that we were working on at the time. And one of the things that we did is we went out to this stable and they surprised us. We got on horses and basically making us look silly on this TV show because we are not good with horses. And we met some kids that were going through some really difficult things. And Lindsay was working with a nonprofit up there. What's the name of the nonprofit? I don't want to butcher it. What?
Well, I worked with both of them. Which one are you talking about? The stables or the other one?
The one with the girls at the stables.
The one with the girls at the stables is Echo Ranch.
Echo Ranch. And the other one is?
Transitional Youth.
Transitional Youth. Yes, correct. So you're correct. You're correct with what you what you did in your life. And we went and had this amazing experience, and I got to see Lindsay firsthand, and she didn't know I was watching her, so it might have been a little creepy when I say it now, but we were out with feeding homeless people with kids from the Boys and Girls Club. We were talking about giving back. So we went and had this incredible experience, and I just saw the heart that Lindsay had. And we developed a little bit of a relationship, a friendship, and stayed in touch. And I followed what she was up to, and I found out more about what she had going on and all of her credentials and how much amazing work she was doing. And so when I had the opportunity, I definitely went and said, hey, I want you to come and work with the kids that we work with. So Lindsay is one of our head one-on-one coaches that works with the kids in our program. So that's the quick background. Lindsay, do you have anything to say for yourself before we get this started?
That I feel blessed and lucky, and I'm excited to be here. And I'm super grateful that, the show of parents that actually showed up is awesome. That's really exciting to take responsibility and show up and have that effort for your kids. I'm impressed.
Yeah, this is awesome. We hope you get a ton of value from it, and we want to get right to it so we can get to your questions. We're going to start with a video that Dr. E put together. It's 15 minutes long. It's about the red zone, which is her new book. She's very easy to find on the internet if you just put in Elizabeth Lombardo, and I'll share that in the chat box for any of you guys that want further information about her other programs that she does, her social media. She has a pretty awesome team around her, and they're putting out amazing content on Facebook and Instagram and on all those channels. And you've probably seen her on some of the big morning shows. She's been awesome on a lot of those shows, and we're very thankful and privileged to have her today. So with that being said, let's get to the video. I'll shut my app. It'll be about 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up and open the floor for your guys' questions. And if you aren't comfortable for any reason sharing stuff, you can type it in, and we can do the questions that way as well. So we don't want to put anyone on the spot, or maybe you've got Zoom fatigue at this point. But here we go. Lindsay, are you ready?
I'm exhausted. I have a to-do list that feels like it's procreating. I'm trying to eat healthy, but just eat a cookie and ruin my diet. Nah, I might as well eat the rest of the plate. My child is driving me crazy. I am so done with COVID. That, my friends, is red zone talk. And each and every one of us is fluent in it. Today, we're going to talk about the red zone, right? What it is, how it impacts you, and how it impacts your parenting and your children. So let me start with a question for you. Are you having any stress right now? Yeah, I thought so. I don't have to tell you that stress levels are really at an all-time high right now for you, for parents, as well as for teens. But just how stressed out are you? Or let me rephrase that. How much distress are you experiencing? You see, distress is the negative aspect of stress. Stress can actually be positive, right? Like when you're excited for a vacation or a big event. But distress includes any emotion you don't want. It could be anger, frustration, worry, sadness, anxiety, guilt, shame, helplessness, hopelessness, worthlessness. It all goes into the pile of distress. And distress exists on a continuum from 0, no distress at all, to 10 out of 10, the most distressed you've ever been, right? Because think about it. Distress is not an all or nothing entity. Sometimes you might feel angry, but you could be a little irritated, right? Low on the distress scale. Or you could be so angry that you were yelling or throwing something or had the proverbial steam coming out of your ears, right? There are different levels of anger, just like there are any emotion. And so that's why this continuum is really important. 0 meaning no distress at all, 10 meaning the most distressed you've ever been. And the red zone, as you can see from this diagram, happens when we're at a 7 out of 10 or higher. A 7 out of 10 or higher. And in the red zone, we think differently and we act differently. Now, I have a quick pop quiz for you. Don't worry, it won't count, right? But just see if you can relate to any of these. Have you ever said or done something that you later regretted? Have you ever procrastinated or avoided an important project? Do you ever still love your child, but not really like them? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you, my friend, were in the red zone. Now I'm talking about the psychological red zone, not the physical red zone. And this is based on my newest book, Get Out of the Red Zone, Transform Your Stress and Optimize True Success. So what happens in the red zone? In the red zone, we tend to think differently and act differently. So it's really important to be aware of where you are on the distress scale, because not only does it not feel very good the higher up you go, but it can actually impact your thoughts and your actions. You see, our level of distress impacts how we view and interact with the world, including our children. And the higher level of distress you have, the more likely you are to see things in a negative way. So the reason why the red zone is so important when it comes to your interactions with your teens is that the higher level of distress you are experiencing, the more likely you are to see them in a negative way. So have you ever noticed how when you're really upset, you tend to view people and events in a more negative light, right? What people say or do cause you more distress, even if what they're doing are really not that big of a deal, right? Little events can cause a lot of distress, can feel like colossal experiences. So your child might do something when you're in the green zone, low levels of stress, and you're like, yeah, they're just being a teenager. They could do the same thing in the red zone when you're in the red zone, and you have a very different reaction. And there's actually a biological reason for this. So let's look at what happens in the green zone. The green zone is at 0, 1, 2, 3, low levels of distress. And in the green zone, you're using more of your frontal lobe, the part here that is highlighted in green, right? And the frontal lobe, of course, is that part of our brain that differentiates us from other animals. It allows us to engage in things like executive functioning, problem solving, perspective taking, right? When we're in the green zone, we can really see all different perspectives. So for example, when your teen responds to you in a gruff manner, when you're at low levels of distress, you're more likely to brush it off. He's just tired, she's having a bad day, might be your interpretation. Okay, so you're using the frontal lobe that allows you to see different perspectives. It's in the green zone that we don't really personalize things. It's in the green zone when we feel confident or more confident. Yeah, I'm not perfect, but I can handle this. It's in the green zone that we can be resilient. Yes, times are tough, and I know they'll get better. Okay. But the higher level of distress you have, the less you see things from all different perspectives, and the more you focus on the negative. And there is a physiological or biological reason for this, because when you were in the red zone, that 7, that 8, that 9, or 10, you were using more of your limbic system, that region that's highlighted here. And that limbic system really is emotional reasoning. It's the area in your lower part of your brain that's responsible for things like fight or flight, emotional reasons. So instead of processing information rationally using your frontal lobe, when your limbic system is more in control, we tend to process information in more negative ways, right? So when you're at a 7 out of 10 or higher on that distress scale, you reach what I call the red zone. And in the red zone, we usually don't think or act 100% rationally. Why? Because again, our brain is using a different part. It's using that limbic system, that fight or flight. Our subconscious almost feels like we are drowning. And when we are drowning, we don't see the perspective of everyone else, right? When we are drowning, we are focused on the problem, and we're trying to do everything we can to help ourselves, to keep ourselves alive, which could mean pushing down other people. It could be not listening to other people, but again, focusing on the problem. So if you're in the red zone and your teen responds to you in a gruff manner, rather than giving them the benefit of the doubt, you might think, oh, they're so disrespectful to me. They don't appreciate all I do for them. And that can cause you to feel more distress, right? To interact with your teen in a less than loving way, and then even feel lousy about yourself, which then perpetuates the red zone, right? We think more negatively in the red zone. We feel more negatively in the red zone, which causes us to think more negatively in the red zone. We act more negatively in the red zone. We feel more negatively in the red zone, and it becomes this downward spiral. So one of my coaching clients, I work with teens and parents of teens. And one of my coaching clients, Sydney, she was a mom of 3 who would yell at her kids, not uncommon, of course, but she would yell at her kids when she got into the red zone. And then she would feel incredible guilt, right? Maybe you've had that experience. You yell at your kid, you feel really guilty, which increased her stress and made it more likely that she would lose it again. So I'm always telling my clients, oopsies, I'm always telling my clients, if you're at a 7 out of 10 or higher on that distress scale, don't let anything out of your mouth, because that's when we tend to say things we later regret. Right? And don't put anything in your mouth, because that's when we tend to consume things we don't necessarily want. So the goal as a parent is to get out and stay out of the red zone as much as possible. And you also want to help your child get out and stay out of the red zone. So in order to do that, one of the first keys is to be really aware of when you are in the red zone and when your child is in the red zone. So there's signs of being in the red zone. I call these red flags. And the first one are emotions you don't want. Whenever you notice those emotions of distress, fear, worry, anxiety, sadness, irritability, anger, frustration, that can be a sign that you may be in the red zone. So when you experience those emotions, you want to stop and say, where am I on the scale? Okay. Second red flag, physical sensations you don't want. For some people, stress goes into their maybe causing GI disturbance or headaches. A lot of people get headaches, or tight muscles, right? So what physical sensations do you get? I remember when I was defending my dissertation, I walked by the mirror and my ears and my shoulders were basically one, right? There was so much tension in my neck from the stress that I was experiencing. I didn't even realize it until I looked in the mirror and I thought, well, that's kind of funny looking, right? So what physical sensations do you have? And realize, is this an indicator that I'm in the red zone? And then the third one are engaging in behaviors you don't want. It could be overeating, it could be yelling, it could be not doing things you want to do, like procrastinating or avoiding, right? So these are the signs for you of being in the red zone. And what I want you to do is once you notice you're creeping up, even before you get into the red zone, but once you notice you're creeping up, like I get a 6 out of 10 or higher, if you have any of these signs, any of these what I call red flags, stop immediately and do something healthy and helpful to get you to a lower level of distress. The other thing to consider is when you notice your child experiencing this, right? So again, emotions you don't want. If you notice that they are feeling anxious, or if they say they're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, they could be in the red zone. Physical sensations. My youngest often gets stomach aches whenever she's in the red zone. So now she knows when she gets that stomach ache, if it isn't because of something that she ate or some stomach virus, usually it's because she's in the red zone. And then behaviors that you don't necessarily want. When your teen is maybe uncharacteristically or not always irritable, but is more irritable at a particular time, that can be a red flag. Not that they're not great kids, not that they're not respectful, but that they are in the red zone. And remember, we process information differently in the red zone than we do in the green zone. So when you notice your child exhibiting these red flags, you notice that they are creeping into the red zone, you want to help them, one, get out of the red zone, right? And two, you want to interact with them in a different way. Okay, I'm going to give an example. Have you ever been really overwhelmed with something and someone told you to just calm down? Yeah. And how helpful was that? Not at all, right? Never in the history of mankind has telling someone in the red zone to just calm down been helpful. And why is that? Remember, our brain feels like it's almost drowning. Telling someone who's flailing around because they're drowning to just calm down doesn't work, right? So when you notice that your teens or your children, adolescents are experiencing red zone, you want to help them get out of the red zone, and you also want to interact with them in a different way. So one thing to do is to maybe say, hey, let's take a break. Let's go for a walk. How about we watch a quick show? There's something to help distract them. It can also be really helpful once you have this conversation with your child about the red zone, and this becomes a conversation that you have in your household. Oh, I'm feeling like I'm about to get in the red zone. I'm going to go for a walk. Or, wow, I feel myself creeping up on that distress scale. I'm going to take a few deep breaths. I encourage you to have these conversations with your child, modeling your own behavior as well as helping them. You also want to be aware of what do your children need. So for example, my oldest child, when she's in the red zone, typically she benefits from venting. And I sit down with her. Of course, I ask her, how can I best support you right now? And if she says, I just want to talk about it, she just spews out venom, right? Whatever's going on. And the goal is not to tell her why she's wrong. The goal is not to point out the positives. Yeah, but this is the good. The goal is just to listen. And this is hard for me because, of course, I'm a psychologist and I can see different perspectives and I know I can help her change her mindset. But when she's in the red zone, that is not the time to teach. That is not the time to learn. So letting her spew out the venom, truly, once she does this, she will look at me and say, thank you, Mom. Give me a hug and then we can move on. Okay? My youngest daughter, she likes to be alone. She just needs her own space when she's in the red zone. So I offer her that. So if your child's in the red zone, you want to interact with them differently than when they're not in the red zone, okay? And I'm not saying let them walk all over you. I'm not saying let them do whatever they want, but be aware that that brain of theirs, which by the way, is more predisposed to be in the red zone just because of the way the teen brain develops, that brain is processing information differently. So I was coaching another parent whose child was having trouble studying, right? And learning new material. And we'll talk at another time about how being in the red zone impacts our ability to learn and focus and concentrate, all plummets. So this, my client's child, her grades were slipping. And at first, the parent was livid, right? attributing the grades to laziness. My child needs to study more. What's wrong with them? But when we really looked at it closer, it was obvious that her daughter was really struggling emotionally. And again, a red zone brain has trouble remembering things and learning things and focusing. Why? Because it feels like it's drowning. Drowning brain is not the time to learn new things. It's the time to focus on survival. So rather than get upset with her daughter, what she did was help her child learn the techniques to get out and stay out of the red zone. And then after her daughter was out of the red zone, that is when she and her daughter took steps to really improve the grades, right? When they could problem solve together. How can we help you learn this material? How can we help you get your assignments in? But that conversation is not very helpful in the red zone. So I think it's stress. Our children are experiencing incredible levels of stress right now. Parents are experiencing incredible levels of stress right now. Here's the deal. We all get in the red zone sometimes, okay? There's nothing wrong with you. It just means you're human. The goal is to get out and stay out and to help your child do the same.
I am a big, there she is. No further ado. Hi.
I was sure. Here I am.
I was going to talk about you nicely behind your back while you were listening real quick, but I'm glad you're here.
I'll go hide and then you go ahead.
No, I love these because I always do feel like it is sitting down like at a master class and getting that front row seat to learn from you. So I just thank you so much for that. And one of the things I was really thinking about when you said the thing about the physical sensation when you're feeling the triggered towards the red zone is I get that in my neck. And did you say yours was the neck as well?
Yeah, I get this. Like this is how I am. I look at myself in the mirror. I'm like, oh, I think I'm in the red zone.
Yeah. I get that in my shoulders and neck. And before I used to go and speak a lot, I would get really nervous before I go on these tours. And like 2 days before, I'd be in like a neck brace. I'd be like, I don't know. Then there was nothing wrong other than in my head. So I absolutely.
Well, it's not that there's nothing wrong except in your head. It's that our brains stress impacts every nervous, system in our body. So musculoskeletal, but it also impacts our immune system, i.e. we can't fight off infections as well. So it's not really like you're making it up. It's just that our mind and our body are so connected. I don't mean to correct you. Sorry.
No, I like that. I need to be corrected more often than not. So, and hi, I see Brandon Davis is here. That makes me happy. I just want to say hi real quick. That's great. So I want to open this up because everyone's busy schedules these days. I want to open it up so that they can ask questions. And then I have a list of several questions of people that couldn't make it or wanted just to stay anonymous for personal reasons. So Lindsay, can we do it where if they have a question, they just raise their hand and then you keep track of the order and go from there?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask Dr. E or myself or Lindsay, you can raise your hand now and then we will go from there. And I also am wondering, is there anyone in here from Alaska? Because I was just up there in Haines. I think there might be some Haines people, possibly Juneau, and then Sitka. They were supposed to share the links out from the school, and I'm just curious if we have anybody from Alaska. That would make me very excited. Haines, we got Haines right there. Kristen, oh, awesome. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to be working with the school there and had so much fun. Although I almost got trapped there because of that snow, but it worked out. So do we have some hands to get us started here, Lindsay?
I have one hand to get us started,
Okay.
Except hold on, give me a half second so I can figure out. Aha!
You're good. Jen Johnson, hi, how are you?
Mary Jean.
Haynes, I think we got more Haynes. I'm clicking on the chat myself.
Okay, Mary, you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like.
Awesome. All right, Mary Jean. Oh, they're muted.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Sorry.
No, you're doing
I'm new to using Zoom.
You're doing great.
But no, I listened to the first part and I was writing it all down, and it makes a lot of sense about the green zone versus the red zone. And I guess we have a senior teenage boy who's going to graduate. And we have definitely had some moments, especially in the last 2 years.
Lots of red zone opportunities in the pandemic.
I know, right? And so, yeah, I guess I'm just really appreciating hearing some of this information because I think we probably all know and feel when that red tide, when it's happening, when you're like, I guess you can feel it inside yourself where you're definitely in the red zone. I wouldn't have called it that before, but now it makes me feel like I have a name for it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I guess my question would just be, we just feel like we do so much negotiating and so much, we feel like we're good parents. We feel like we're trying to encourage, but we sometimes fall into these patterns that are hard to get out of, where you just, you say, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then the next week, something triggers. The thing that triggers you is the same thing. And so I guess I'm not being, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to ask, but my question, I guess, would be when you say let them vent, so if they like really go off and vent, we just kind of, just stand back and give them space and let them cool off and same for the parents, I suppose, right? You just try not to vent in the room and walk away and vent or something.
You mean the parent is venting or your son is venting?
Well, for both, you know what I mean? Like, so we get it, if you get into that thing where everybody starts to argue, like you want them, you want them to clean up their room and take care of the dog and do the chores that they've been doing since they were 7. But suddenly as a teenager, they don't know how to do those anymore. And just, you get into those spirals of, I will do it soon. And then they don't. And then it just kind of keeps ramping up.
Sure.
So the venting part, I guess my question was, letting the teen just vent however he wants, or is there a, do you say, okay, I'm gonna let you vent, I'm just gonna walk away? And I don't know. Does that make sense?
Well, it depends if they're in just like a really high state of red zone, and one of their ways of getting out of the red zone is to vent. That's one thing. If they're yelling or being disrespectful, that's totally different. When it comes to, I'm sure you're not the only person on this call who has teens who they have responsibilities that they don't engage in. So especially that's a trigger for red zone-ness, not a real word, but I'm going to make it a word. What I encourage to do is, and I'm going to say it and you're going to say, yeah, I know. And I want you to do it, is sit down as a family and talk about what are the house rules. One of the house rules is that one of our house rules is the girls, I have 2 daughters. I have a senior and a sophomore in high school. And I want their rooms to be semi-clean. What does that mean? Well, I clearly define it, because otherwise what my definition of pretty clean is and their definition completely different. So we have defined in our family, no non-furniture on the floor. Okay. So that means clothes or whatever. That's the definition. And in order to get their phone in the morning, because my senior now keeps her phone, but they used to not have their phones in their rooms at night. The room had to be clean. And if not, they don't get their phone. But the key is, one, as a family, come up with what the rules are. So let your child be part of that and give some input. 2, in that conversation, have a discussion about what the consequences are. Have your child be part of that. It's incredible when we allow our children to be part of these conversations. I mean, sometimes the consequences that they give are much harsher than I ever would give. But we come to an agreement and then stick to those consequences. And I know, especially like sending my kids to school without a phone. My day we didn't have phones, so it wasn't a big deal. But now it's like, oh my gosh, my kid doesn't have a phone. It happened once. Only once. And because of that, it was, it wasn't a punishment. It was more the way that we frame it is you get rewarded for doing your chores, for taking care of your responsibilities. Because we know from psychology, when we reward positive behavior, it actually helps continue that behavior more than if we punish negative behavior. So you post it as the reward, and if they don't engage in what they need to, they don't get the reward. It's just like if most adults, if you don't go to work, you don't get paid. Like that's the consequence of that. So you just have that consequence, and then you stay out of the red zone when they are in the red zone if they have the consequence. I need my phone. Well, it is too bad you don't get your phone today. I sure hope that tomorrow you will do whatever it is you're gonna do so that you can have your phone or whatever that consequence is. The more weekends parents can stay out of the red zone and let them, if they're going to be emotional, be respectful. And we can talk about that too, but let them, it's not fair. Well, and the best thing is if you have an actual contract. I highly recommend you have a written contract where everyone has signed it. Here's their contract. You signed it, and just remain objective as opposed to getting sucked into their energy. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Great. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary Jane.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for asking.
I like that, having them come up with the rules with you. So then it comes right back to them. Hey, we came up with this together. That's great.
Yeah.
It's great for two reasons. One, because when we come up with a solution where we have more buy-in, right? We're more likely to do it. But the other thing is, our children go from being completely dependent on us to hopefully being completely independent from us, right? And this is that transition, and engaging what we call helping your child engage in problem solving to really think about what would make sense and how can we do this, having them be a part of that. You as the parent have the ultimate say. So I'm not saying let your kids decide everything, but having them be part of that conversation allows them to start to problem solve and to think, so that when they go to college, for example, or are no longer in the house, they have those skills, because those are skills that a lot of kids don't have. And so when they go to college, they haven't been solving problems on their own because their parents have been doing for them. Why have their parents been doing for them? Because their parents love them and they're trying to make it easier on them. And yet it doesn't necessarily help them develop that independence.
Yes, that great intentions, but bad actual actions. The best of intentions,
or
but
not as helpful. Well, we won't call them that. We'll call them not as helpful.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. I like it. I have a question from a parent, and then Lindsay, maybe you can funnel in the next one. We could just alternate it. So this question, Dr. E, is: my teen puts a lot of pressure on themselves to be perfect and to be successful in school, in sports, in baseball, and going to an elite college and being successful in life. How can I help them deal with this self-imposed stress and not be so not be so hard on themselves? So how do we support that type A achiever perfectionist without them, driving themselves crazy?
I wrote a book called Better Than Perfect: 7 Steps to Crush Your Inner Critic and Create the Life You Love. So,
okay.
And full disclosure, please know that most, I can't say all, but most self-help authors write books for themselves. So my name is Elizabeth. I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Yes.
So it's, and this generation is very perfectionistic. They don't necessarily call it that, but perfectionistic isn't, it's not having a neat junk drawer where every pen is neatly aligned and every paperclip is perfectly stacked. Perfectionism is very simply all or nothing. I'm perfect or I'm a failure, right? I got an A or I failed. I did perfectly in the game, or I made one mistake and so I messed up. And it's really, again, we call it dichotomous thinking, all or nothing thinking. It's very prevalent in this, in our kids' generation, because, or one reason is because there's so much comparing.
Yeah.
So at the root of perfectionism is comparing, right? They're comparing themselves to others, and they don't compare themselves to others like, oh, the guy who didn't get on the baseball team, hey, I'm really proud of myself. They compare themselves to others and feeling like they fall short. So one thing to consider is that, and you're going to hear a theme because there's so much red zone stuff going on right now. When we're in the red zone, we tend to think more perfectionistic as opposed to when we're in the green zone. When in the green zone, this is when we can be confident. Yeah, I made a mistake, but I know I can handle this. In the red zone, I made a mistake, I'm a failure. So one thing I would say is to help your son or help your child get out of the red zone and stay out of the red zone. The other thing to consider is so perfectionism is really based on self-worth. How worthy do I view myself? And it tends to be very, what I call conditional self-worth. Conditional self-worth is I believe in myself if and only if certain external conditions are met. And those conditions vary from person to person. So for some people, it may be I get a certain number of likes on social media, or I get certain grades, or I play a certain way, in sports. And if they don't achieve that, they don't feel good about themselves. If they do achieve that, it's good for a minute, but it's almost like being on a treadmill, right? When you're on a treadmill, you got to step forward, but you have to keep stepping forward. And so when they get on this, I call it a treadmill of self-worth. That's what's happening. They're on this constant treadmill of self-worth. So yeah, I did that, but I have to do something again. How do you overcome that? Well, if I was going to give you one thing to do, in addition to helping your child get out of the red zone, if I was going to encourage you to do one thing, or encourage your child to do one thing, it would be to volunteer. Volunteer, to find a cause about which your child is passionate. Doesn't matter if it's animals, kids, elderly, veterans, whatever it is, it's something that they're passionate about. Because when we give to other people who are struggling, when we give our time, our energy, our effort, and we can interact with others, one, we can see how other people are, and we can maybe feel better about our own lives, right? And two, it gives us it gives your child a sense of self-worth that is not conditional. It's really based on just applying their values and helping out another individual or a group of individuals. So volunteering, and I have no doubt that your child's schedule is really busy. It doesn't have to be every week, but just every once in a while, throw those in. That could be really powerful.
I love that one. And I've experienced that in my own life when, for me, even like when you're down or you're having a hard time, if you can go and do something for someone else, all of a sudden, like you said, your problems are so minuscule to what else is going on there. So I love that. Now that is great. I want to rewind a little bit here. We had a question come in the chat that I think was related to our previous question about the rules. And it says, what if your kid is not ready to accept any rules regarding the phone and screen as they turn 14 or 15? And they think that these limitations are for younger kids and they are too old for it. Any thoughts on that, Lindsay or Dr. E?
I'll let Dr. E go for it.
Okay. I'm like,
if you need a sip of water, you let us know. And also,
real quick, you're on a roll.
Real quick, Dr. E, that book that you said, where can they, if they wanted more information, where would it be on your website?
Maybe we're redoing the website.
I put your website in the chat. So if people want more information, if people want more information, her website is over there. So you are going to say about the screens. Screen time.
Well, so there are a couple of approaches to that. There's one to just kind of share, some of what happens with the teen brain. I think we're doing that training, so it's going to be really good. A teenage brain is very different from, I was going to say human brain, sorry, an adult brain. So part of it is that. So you can have a rational conversation with them about why it's important. You can also just say, I completely respect your opinion. And as your parent and knowing what the research shows, I know that this is what's best for you. I know it's not what you want, but I know that this is what's best for you. I highly, highly, highly encourage that you do not let your kids, and it's your house rules. I'm just going to tell you from research and from my clinical experience and just from being a parent, I highly encourage you not let your children have their phones all night. I started letting my now senior have her phone at night because she's going to college next year. And I want her to get used to having a phone and not being responsible with it. But we had at 10 o'clock, which is probably even later, but at 10 o'clock, phone has to be downstairs. In front of, we have a plug-in station, all phones go down there. And the children were responsible for getting it down on time. And again, if they didn't, there were consequences for that. So you can say, I respect that's your opinion. I want you to feel empowered. And one of the ways that I want to help you feel empowered is by giving you a phone. And part of having a phone is having it until X time, and then here are the house rules on that. They can disagree. What you want to do is to not get sucked in so that there's an argument. and you can listen to them. You know, if you can stay out of the red zone, I'm being very Italian right now. If you can stay out of the red zone, you can listen to them, you can hear their opinion, you can respect their opinion, and then just let them know that this is the way it's going to be.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Lindsay, I saw you responded to Nancy. Hi, Nancy. And I hope that helped be our initials there who asked the previous question. Did you answer Nancy's question a little bit? Was that what that was for?
I'll read the answer to Nancy. So I'll read the question and the answer and see if Dr. E, if you have anything that you want to add to that.
Okay. Yeah. And for all the people, if you want to ask the question and talk through it, you can just raise your hand and click the button for that. And if you want to do it in the chat, how you guys are doing it, that's great too. Just want to make sure that everyone gets their chance to ask whatever they need. So go take it from there, Lindsay.
Yeah, Nancy asked the statement of first you need to get your child out of the red zone. How do I get her out of the red zone based off this reference? And I answered her saying creating a safe space for them to allow emotions. This allows them to process each emotion working through their way down through the scale. And as they do this, they learn how to process each emotion more productively and recognize them and take control over that scale more productively each time. It allows them like a mastery of that. What do you have to add?
Yeah, no, that's great. You know, I really encourage that as a family, you start to have conversations about being in the red zone. When you as a parent are in the red zone, when you maybe notice that your children might be in the red zone, so that, I mean, one of the reasons why I wrote this book was to depathologize mental health issues, right? We all have physical health issues. We all have mental health issues, right? And some it's full blown depression, anxiety, and some not so much. But if we can use this term of red zone, then our kids and even ourselves can say, oh, I realize I'm getting, you know, I'm creeping up into the red zone. Let me do something to help myself. And what are those things? Well, it depends. It depends where they are. So if they're really high, like if you're at a 9 out of 10, a 10 out of 10, even 8 out of 10, it's hard to think rationally, because remember that it's that limbic system, it's that fight or flight that's processing the information. And so sometimes what we need to do is take steps to get out of the red zone, so then we can do exactly what Lindsay said in terms of processing emotion. How do you do that if that rational brain just can't kick in? I don't think I talked about this. I have something called the HELM principle. HELM, HELM. It's an acronym because I love acronyms. And I say, grab, like I really do, grab stress by the helm. So H stands for halt. And this is a parent halt. I did say this, you know, don't let anything out of your mouth, because that's when we say things for later regret. Don't put anything in your mouth, because that's when we consume things for later regret. E stands for exercise. I'm not talking about 90 minutes of yoga class. I'm talking about literally jumping out of bed, running up a flight of stairs, doing some push-ups, sit-ups, squats. The biochemicals that are released in your brain and in your body help you get out of that red zone. Mm-hmm. L is laughter. The other day, I'm in my home office and my oldest is the next room over, but the other day my oldest was being very red zoney, and I felt myself getting into the red zone. And so before we even had a conversation, I said, I'm feeling myself getting into red zone. Let me just take a break. I want to make sure that I can have a rational conversation with you. So I came in here, I hopped on YouTube and watched a couple SNL skits, right? I think they're funny. I got out of the red zone. Then I could have a conversation with her. And then M stands for music. A lot of my clients, I coach parents, I coach teens, they have literally a get out of the red zone playlist. Yeah. Because we've all heard songs that we haven't heard in, you know, years or even decades that bring us back to that time. And so having a set playlist that elevates your mood, that maybe you're dancing around to, it will help get out of the red zone, so that then that rational brain can kick in and start to process what's going on.
Yeah, I love it. The playlist. I need that.
I'm going to add really quick to that. So we actually have one of the kids that we're coaching was just in that spot the other day, and I was having a conversation with him about it. And that was, we talked about the power of music, and as easily as you can get into the red zone with it, you can stay in or perpetuate going further into the red zone with music if you choose music that is perpetuating that emotion, right? And so we had this whole conversation about it, and I actually made them a playlist and sent it. And so I just think that it's a neat thing to watch them adapt to it, and they were stoked, super excited.
Yeah, and you know, I do a lot of sports psychology, and one of the things I often do with my athletes is for their pre-competition is to have a playlist that really helps to get them in the zone. So not just out of the red zone, but in the zone, right?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so and the more they hear it and the more they associate that music with getting into the zone, that the quicker that happens.
Love it. Love it. I got another question for you from a parent, Dr. E. How do I get my team to take responsibility for their own time management? It feels like I constantly have to nag them, and then we end up arguing and it's hurting our relationship. So taking responsibility on their own time management.
So there are a couple of things. I will say as a parent and a clinician, I often was like, okay, my kid needs to do this. And then I realized I was contributing to the problem a lot because I would, use, or this person used the word nag. Yeah, I would nag them. I'd get upset with them. I'd personalize, you said you're going to do this, you didn't do it. And I realized that when I stopped that, when I stayed out of the red zone, when I just realized this is a teenage brain has trouble with time management. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be responsible. It just means they have trouble with time management. Great. So when I keep that in mind, then I can have a rational conversation with my child. You can have a rational conversation with your child and say, what needs to get done? Right? Whether it's homework, whether it's chores, and sit down when everyone's in the green zone and help them kind of process through that. Maybe they need to write it out. Maybe they need to, so for example, my children, if I ask them to do something, they're like, yeah, I'll do that. And I'll say, what would be helpful for you to remember to do that? I should put a reminder in my phone. Excellent. Why do you do that? Because we've already had that conversation. So I would encourage you to help them figure out together, again, together to figure out ways so that they can remember, or so that they can better manage their time. And again, maybe it's writing it out on a piece of paper, maybe it's scheduling it in their phone, but looking at ways that are helpful for them. And then remember the power of reward. So what's in it for them? If the time management is to get their homework done, well, what's the reward? Can you give a reward for them? So one of the things that people often are talking about is gaming. My kid's gaming too much. Blah, blah.
Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah, let that be a reward for doing their homework, for whatever it is that they needed to do. Let that be a reward. So when you do this, and at first you may want to check, hey, let's go over together and see how it went. A lot of schools have the opportunity to see, are they turning in their assignments? What was the homework and is it in? And so you can start to do that with your child and let them know, I'm doing this so that you'll be able to do this on your own. Oh, I can do it on my own. Great. I know you can, but we haven't had as much evidence of that as we'd like. So let's start together. And even just perhaps the thought of you doing that with them could motivate them to want to do it more. But again, when you can stay out of the red zone, where you can get out of that nagging and just say, how can we help you? Again, what are we going to do to put systems in place for you, as well as what is the reward, i.e. consequences? That's a good discussion to be having.
I like that. I think kids are going to be getting a lot more of their homework done if the gaming is the reward. I see good grades and a lot more productivity in the future here. That's great. I love it. All right, I got another.
But I mean, it makes sense. It's like theoretically, sometimes we might, but theoretically, we don't have, ice cream for dinner, right? We might have that, that's after we have our vegetables, that kind of thing. So.
Yep. Perfect. All right, here's what we got next. My teen's attitude is so disrespectful and it is taking a toll on our family dynamics. I find myself frustrated and my teen frustrated and everything blows up. Yeah. Can you help me with this?
It's okay to be frustrated, angry, whatever emotion you think your child is experiencing. It's not okay to be disrespectful. Do you want to restate what you want to communicate? That's very simple.
Yeah.
It's okay. We want our children to have emotions. We want to encourage them to express their emotions. Even anger can be expressed in a healthy and helpful and respectful way. So we don't want to tell our kids not to be these emotions, because they are. We want to help them be able to express, I am upset because blah, 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 you did this or this happened at school. Okay. I hear you. And then you can empathize with the emotion, and you can really hear what's going on. It's okay to be angry. It's not okay to be disrespectful.
Mm.
And here's the beauty, or here's another really important tip. When you notice yourself being disrespectful, call yourself out. There have been times, because I'm human, that I'm a little snippy with the girls. And if I can't do it then because I'm too red zoney, I will come back and say, you know what? I'm really sorry. I was frustrated with what happened, and it's okay for me to be frustrated, and it's not okay for me to be disrespectful to you. So I hold myself to that being accountable too, because when we can model that, one of the biggest things that I hear from teens when I'm coaching with teens is, when it comes to their parents, is my parent's a hypocrite. And it's not that you really are a hypocrite, but sometimes, we're telling them one thing, don't be on your phone so much. And yet here we are, on our phones all the time. So if you can call yourself out when you make a mistake like that and own it, man, that's going to have so much power on your child.
I love it. Lindsay, do you have anything?
I just think,
I see something going on there.
Yeah. How'd you know? I was just thinking right. As we went through both of those two, it stood out to me that the empowerment in allowing them to make their own choices, and how easy it is for us to flip the script and still communicate what we need to communicate to them with a sense of putting the ball in their court. And then it allows them that control, it allows them that empowerment, which in turn builds their self-confidence and their self-worth. And then they're more willing to trust themselves and make positive decisions. When they make that positive decision, it's easier to make the next positive decision. So it's kind of like this daisy chain that happens if we just reframe the question in a way that makes them think that they have total control over it. Because it's all in how you word it, right? And so I think for me, I know it's really recognizing, like you said, recognizing when I'm in that red zone and stepping out and saying, you know what, this entire situation has emotionally charged me into a way that I am not going to be nice to you. And I know that. So I'm going to take a minute and then I'm going to come back. And I would appreciate it if you could do the same thing, because I'm not going to be able to talk to you this way. Like, we can't do this. It's not cool.
It's such excellent modeling, because it's not what we say to our kids, it's what we do, right? And so we can tell our kids to be respectful, we can tell them to, control your emotions, but if we aren't doing it, they're going to, even as teens, we think they aren't watching us. Man, they're watching us so intensely, especially when we kind of aren't realizing that they're there. So that's so important. Really good. Yeah.
Can I, we have a question here, and I just want to, Trey, is there any way that I can unmute you and have you verbally state the question? Because I want to make sure that I'm getting it correct. So I'm going to go to you and see if you're willing to do that. That would be awesome.
Trey for the win.
Perfect.
See him popping up there. Does he have to unmute himself, or are you able to do that for him?
I got
there
it.
we go.
Is that
Boom.
good?
This guy knows technology. How's it going?
He's like, please give me something harder than that.
Hi, how are y'all?
Good.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks for popping up.
And I got my wife on another location. Nancy's on a location. So here's the
Divide
deal
and conquer. Love it.
that we sometimes deal with. We have a daughter. She's a perfectionist, as you described. We would definitely agree. There are times that she emotes what's going wrong. She raises it to us. At that point, I now in my mind, I'm thinking, is this comfort or is this cure? Does she want to be listened to or fixed? Generally, I don't ever get this right. But my question here is, if we go with cure, or we kind of remind her what we've talked about, it seems like every time we give a suggestion, it's wrong. And that everything we kind of do is, no, that's wrong. So at that point in time, should I say, it should have been more for comfort? or should we backed up and done something well before? So I think with Nancy and I, we sometimes feel that we're just constantly, everything we say is wrong and or being under the microscope of things.
And probably she's in the red zone when she's having this, right? Because if you know, watching the video, when we're in that red zone, that's exactly what we're doing. We're focusing on what's wrong. I'm sorry, Lindsay, were you gonna say something?
No, it's okay. Go ahead. I can file in after you.
Go ahead.
I think this is actually the same. We're talking about the same person earlier as the zones and like creating that safe space. And that safe space for her is that space that you're talking about, whether it's cure or comfort. When anyone is in that zone, in that red zone, because we don't think rationally, we're unable to accept a rational help. So everything will be wrong. And it's not you, it's not because what you're saying is incorrect. And it's not because she won't appreciate what you're saying at a different time. It's because she's unable to hear anything rational at that particular point. So it has to be comfort. It has to be that comfort. And that's that safe space that I was talking about. So if she needs to talk, let her talk. If she needs to not talk, give her space and allow her to feel the emotions, walk through those emotions. And as she does that, that builds her confidence. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Yes. And I think we've kind of figured out, all right, got to find the right time to deal with it. But at that point in time is not the time.
Yeah. That space. And that's awesome. You guys are working so hard. And I have to say the fact that she's choosing to bring it to you in that moment and be vulnerable in it is huge. So giving her that space, she's going to come back and want to talk about it with you guys because she trusts you. And that's a lot to be said for a teen girl.
Yeah, no, I was
like that.
complimenting Nancy on that, where like, you know, she came back and wanted to talk, and it was like, just keep doing it and keep showering her with love. So
yes. Awesome. You guys are great.
And as you were describing it, Trey, I heard a little or I thought I heard a little helplessness, like, I don't know which way to go, right? Mm-hmm. I ask my kids, do you want to just talk, or would you like me to help you solve this problem?
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm trying to do that more now, you know, with just other people. Do you want a cure, or do you want comfort? You know, it's kind of blunt, but it's there, you know, but it's clear.
Yeah. Well, okay. Good. I applaud that. And it sounds like you both are doing a really great job. So I mean, just really great. I know Lindsay said this at the beginning, and I'm just going to reiterate. I'm just applaud all the parents for being on tonight and really taking this really important step to supporting your child even more. So great job.
Awesome. Thank you, Trey. And hi, Nancy out there in the other location, wherever that is. I love it. I love it.
Location.
So I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but I want to make sure if anyone that's here live right now has any questions. Lindsay, will you let me know if they raise their hand, because you know I'm a man and I can't multitask.
I got you.
And I have two quick questions for you.
Speed round. Go.
Yeah, so we'll see if we can keep this kind of heavy, but I want to get to like the serious one, because I don't want to leave anyone hanging. Where is it? Okay, so my teen is riddled with anxiety and can't even get out of the car to go to school because they're just crippled with this anxiety, and they need the help of a social worker to come and help talk them through this. How can we help deal with this situation and offer any advice or insights with something like that?
Yeah. Did you want to go, Lindsay?
Oh, no, I was going to let you start.
Oh, okay. Well, first, you want to, and maybe you're already doing this, but you want to give your child the skills of how to deal with anxiety. Mm-hmm. How to deal with anxiety is a skill like, I don't know, playing the piano, right? And if I tell the story, my grandmother used to teach a course called How to Play the Piano Despite Years of Practice, right? So she would take people who would develop these habits of playing the piano, she'd get rid of the bad habits, she'd teach the right habits, and then they practice. And if you get rid of what isn't really effective and you learn what is effective and you apply it, you can't help but get better. Dealing with anxiety, in my clinical opinion, is a skill. For some reason, we don't teach this in school, but there are skills to help people, again, get out and stay out of the red zone. So I would encourage, and you're probably doing that, to work with a professional to have those skills. Something to consider is anxiety is caused by what we say to ourselves. Right? It's not caused by going to school, for example. It's caused by, if you stick a microphone in your child's brain, what are they saying? No one's going to like me. School's overwhelming. I'm seeing a lot of what we call FOGO, fear of going out right now, because kids they haven't practiced these interaction skills for so long. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? You could be strong. You don't go to the gym anymore. You can lose your muscles. Same thing when it comes to confidence and social interactions. So looking at helping explore what your child is saying to themselves, and then what could they change to say to themselves. Now, it's one thing to say, just think happy thoughts. That's fine. One of the things that I recommend when I'm working with teens is I call it BFA, best friend advice, which means if your best friend was experiencing what you're experiencing, and ask, and identify what they're saying to themselves. I'm no good. No one likes me. I'm going to fail my test. Whatever your child has identified that they said. BFA is, what would you say to your best friend if they told you that? Would you say you are a total loser and no one likes you? Of course not, right? Your child would say something encouraging. So help, because it's hard often when we're in the red zone, especially, to figure out good advice for ourselves. Help your child figure out what they would say to their best friend, and then let them say it to themselves. Repeat a mantra. There are a lot of other things to do in terms of helping, reduce that distress in the beginning of the morning. So priming their brain with something positive. Maybe it's listening to music. Maybe it's starting the day with gratitude. Maybe it's starting the day with just a quick walk. Exercise can be great, so that they're already in a lower place. And then to have some of that mindset of, what am I going to say to myself when I get in the car, and really looking at, again, that internal dialogue.
Yeah. And there's a line between dealing with and learning those skills, dealing with anxiety. I feel like anxiety is it's like a side effect of these issues, right? And so you can teach them the skills to handle in the moment of, like, when you're trying to drag your kid out of the car, there's things that you can do in the moment of, but it's not dealing with the root cause, the root issue of that. And there's importance in both of those things. Dealing with both of those things is important. And there are lots of different methods to work with them in the moment of, to help them get back into their body, because a lot of times they're completely wrapped up in their head, and they can't even necessarily recognize the things their body is feeling at the time. And so there are ways and methods to help with that. But dealing with the issues that are causing that, like you were saying, Dr. E, is so crucial. So crucial. Yeah. Because there's a phrase that I feel like goes along really well with what you were saying, that I always say is, what did you make it mean? You're making this mean something. You're making getting out of the car mean something. You gave it a definition. What is that? And most of the time in that situation, we give it a meaning, and then it makes no sense. That meaning makes no sense. It's things that we've gathered over time, And so that's a question that I ask a lot of kids when I'm coaching is, what'd you make it mean? And they're normally like, I don't know.
Yeah. They're not married yet. They get married, you'll know there's some cryptic language going on back and forth. There's the single guy. Well, I am so thankful for you ladies. I just feel like I learned so much every time. I appreciate it. And I wanted to just say, for anyone here that joined us that is just visiting and wants to learn more about our program, you could set a call with us, and I'm going to hit the chat. I got it queued up. That's the link. And then I'm going to ask you, Dr. E, one more question, but I want to get this out in case people have to go. And it's kind of a heavy question, but these are the times that we're in, and these are the situations that people are dealing with. And then after I ask the question, I'm going to write your site in here again if people want to find out more about Dr. E and all the amazing things that she has going on, whether it's the sports psychology, her own programs for parents, and a million other things that she has going on. I'll let you talk about that at the end. Sound good?
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect.
Would you put in Alibi? Would you?
Okay. Yes, I will. Perfect. Or I might make you do it so I don't spell it wrong.
I could do.
That's not my strong suit. So yes, is it just elevive.com?
There you go.
Perfect.
There we
There
go.
it is. Awesome. So here's the final question, and then if anyone wants to ask anything as well. So the question is, my teen is self-harming. What can I do when I take the phone away as a punishment for bad behavior? They self-harm themselves, and this is making them feel completely powerless. Can you help point in the right direction or offer any type of um, helpful advice or tips to help deal with this obviously very serious situation?
Very serious. I'm very sad. The research shows 17% of teens are cutting.
17?
17, but I'm pretty sure that number is higher.
I think so too.
So what happens is when a lot of times, especially teens and young people, when they have stress and they don't know what to do, and they don't have, for example, the TAP program or one of my programs, they will get online, right? And they'll, what do I do if I'm stressed? And the hits are how to self-harm and how to do it in a way that your parents won't catch you. So a lot of times it's up on high up on the thighs or high up on the arm, or it may be lower, but then they're wearing long sleeves. So the first thing is to realize that self-harm is a symptom of something deeper. So we don't want to punish, we don't want to judge. There's a lot of guilt and shame. What happens is when kids cut, the physical pain, they feel the physical pain instead of their emotional pain. So it actually feels better. It also, for some people, releases endorphins. So they get kind of a high off of it. It doesn't last. And then they often feel guilt and shame associated with it, puts it more in the red zone. And then it can become this cycle because they don't know what else to do. So the short answer is just to really empathize with them. I'm so sorry that you are feeling so overwhelmed. And again, to really take the judgment out of it. And when I say the judgment, I don't even necessarily mean that you're judging. A teen brain, the way that they process is a lot of limbic system. And we know from the research, for example, that teens will interpret faces and tones of voice to be different than adults do. So there was a research study where they showed pictures, for example, and the adults would identify a picture as someone being concerned or worried. The same picture, a teen says, oh, that person is judging or thinking negatively about the person. Same face. So we want to be super careful with the teen brain of how we're coming across. But the first thing is really to empathize and kind of I'll give them a space to talk about it. And this is really a place where it's important that they get help so that they can have skills when they notice. Again, I'm going to use that red zone language. What happens is people cut when they're in the red zone, right? So when they notice themselves creeping up, what are some healthy and helpful things that they can do so that they don't get up there, so that they don't feel like this is the only thing that I can do to help myself.
Mm-hmm. Some of those big skills are because our body and our brain are so linked, right? They're feeling pain, they're feeling emotional pain, and they're expressing it outwardly. And it's easier, and it's much easier to control, to express outward pain that you cause yourself. You know what it's going to feel like, you know exactly how deep you're going to go, they have control over it. They have total control. They don't have control over the emotion that they're feeling, or they don't believe they do. And allowing the body and brain to kind of come back together. There is a few different methods where if you have them hold an ice cube in between their hands and let it just kind of sit, it actually hurts eventually, but it will, it kind of brings their body and brain back together. Same thing with an ice bath or cold shower. That really seems to help. It really zaps us back into ourselves. Let's see what else. Oh, there's a rubber band. If they can snap that rubber band on their wrist, those are all really good for time and place moments to help.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to say it one more time. I feel so blessed and thankful to know both of you and to be able to learn so much from you. And, your heart and how you show up in the world is just incredible. And And I also want to say that as well for all of the parents here. There's a million other things you could be doing right now on your Sunday, and whether it's Netflix or whatever thing that you want to be doing, but you're here because you care and you love your kids. And so I just appreciate that, and your kids are very lucky to have you. So I hope you got some great value out of this. And someone asked it in the chat box there about seeing a replay. And we will send that out so that you guys can have this if you did want to be able to watch it again or share it with your partner if they were unable to make it. And then we can go from there. Did we have one more question pop in the bottom?
No, it's not a question.
Oh, okay.
Just a thank you. And you're
Okay.
so nice
Well,
comment.
awesome. We'll
We're
check
thankful
it
for-
out. Oh, is it
we're thankful
Brandon?
for you, Brandon. Yeah.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I will check that out. So you guys are amazing. Keep an eye out for that. And if you need anything in the meantime, you guys can reach out, and I think you know how to find us by now. So Dr. E, Lindsay, any last words to guide us through the week here?
Get out and stay out of the red zone. How's that?
Yeah. Protect yourself. Value yourself first.
Awesome. All right, you guys, happy Sunday. Have a great week. And I appreciate all of you being here. So we'll do it again next month.
Yes.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.